Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to this very important discussion and presentation on the safety and the security of our downtown. My name is Denis Foulem, and I'm the chair of the board of the DMCI. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Homeless and Downtown Security Task Force. And I think more importantly, I'm a stakeholder also of the downtown. We own a commercial and multi-residential real estate in the downtown. And as a stakeholder, and I would also add to that, I would include to that all the other 13 board members of the MCI that are also stakeholders of the downtown. We are obviously sharing the concerns of the community regarding the safety and the security of the downtown. We want to see actions. We need to see immediate results. So the goal today, again, is to be able to focus on these immediate actions and needed results. As you probably saw, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the task force report, which was released more than 2 weeks ago now. Which is available on the DMCI and the Chamber of Commerce website. The task force has put together, after a long and very productive process, a series of actions. I think there are 27 actions. Some of them will obviously take more time to generate, the long-lasting results that we need, especially for the core issues when we talk about the homeless situation, the mental health and the addiction. Some solutions will take more time to implement, but there's also a series of actions that are designed to create or generate immediate results, immediate improvements. And again, especially in regards to the safety and the security of our downtown. So today, we are here to have a presentation from the RCMP, and from the city of for us. On this, will colleague.
Penny, you're frozen. We've lost Penny, John.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll, oh, he's back. You froze for a second there, Denis. I don't know if you want to finish off your comments. You're on mute, Denis. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. So where was I in my comments?
You just talked about the 27 actions and, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So just to conclude on the report side, I don't know if you got this, but obviously some of the actions will take more time than others to get to obviously generate long-term sustainable results, especially when it comes to the core issues like the homeless situation, the mental health and addiction part of the equation. But there's also a series of actions that are needed to generate immediate actions, not immediate actions, but immediate results. And that's the focus of the discussion today, is really to talk about these actions that are required to generate, again, a change in our downtown, especially when it relates to the safety and the security of our downtown. So the presentation today will have the RCMP and the City of Moncton obviously presenting some of these actions from the task force report. And on this, I will turn I will introduce John Wishart, one of the co-chairs of the task force, and also the CEO of the Greater Moncton Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Denis. Good morning, everyone. Bon matin à tous. As Denis said, I'm John Wishart. I'm co-chair of the task force and also CEO of the chamber. Merci de vous être rejoint à la session Zoom d'aujourd'hui sur les questions de sûreté et de sécurité au centre-ville. Thank you for logging into today's session on downtown safety and security. We have with us today 3 individuals who will outline past and current initiatives to improve security in the downtown area, as well as future plans that are outlined in 9 action items in the Community Task Force. And these individuals are Superintendent Ron De Silva, who's the Chief of the Kodiak Regional RCMP, Conrad Landry, who's Director of Community Safety and also Fire Chief with the City of Moncton, and Vincent Marola, who's the Community Development Officer for Social Inclusion with the City of Moncton. And Vincent has been seconded to the Community Task Force for the next few months to help us drive progress on these 27 actions. And we're currently in the process of posting for a position of a managing director who will be the permanent resource attached to the work of the task force. So we've set aside 1 hour for today's session. We can go a little longer if there's still comments out there. And we know that some downtown property owners had a meeting last week with Denis and Ann from DMCI. And today, as Denis said, is an attempt to let you know what's happening, what's planned, and for you to raise questions and provide feedback and concerns about those plans. We also know this is an urgent priority for our community and our downtown. After my brief intro, we'll allow Superintendent De Silva and Chief Landry to address the 9 action items. Cette présentation sera suivie d'une période de questions-réponses où vous pourrez poser vos questions. Nous utiliserons la fonction Q&A au bas de votre écran Zoom. Veuillez soumettre vos questions à tout moment et j'essaierai d'en traiter autant que possible dans le seconde moitié de l'heure. So that'll be followed by Q&A period. You can pose your questions at any time during the next hour using the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please submit your questions anytime and we'll get to as many as we can. And then if time permits, we'll have an open comment section at the end of the Q&A if someone would like to make direct comments. I should note that your microphones right now have been muted during the presentation part and the Q&A. We've got up to 500 people who could be allowed on the session. So when we get to the live comment section, would you please write the word speak in the Q&A and we will manually unmute your microphone so you can comment during that section. So written questions during the Q&A and just write the word speak if you'd like to make a live comment at the end of the hour. And Anne Poirier-Basque of DMCI will close the event with some concluding remarks. So enough of the preamble. We'll now involve Superintendent De Silva and Chief Landry to lead us through the 9 action items. So the first action item, Superintendent De Silva, says Kodiak Regional RCMP will increase the size of the community policing unit and will relocate the CPU to a separate Main Street location by the first quarter of 2022, including 24/7 downtown zone walking patrol. If you could give us an update on that and tell us how you feel that will help improve the downtown security issue.
Thank you, John and Denis, and I guess the entire task force for this invitation. So like you mentioned, I am the OIC, and I guess as of last month, I became the permanent OIC for Kodiak. So I should be here for a while going forward. And I guess and appreciate the fact that the business community is on this call. I have taken the opportunity on a couple occasions in the past few months, and I've visited a few of the businesses downtown and I've heard some of their concerns. Some we've worked closely with to try to strategize approaches. So I think this is probably a good medium where we can have all the community together during this discussion. And I am open, I'm going to say probably after the holidays, to continue visiting some of the locations downtown to see if we can address specific needs. So John, I guess as far as our community policing unit, so just in context with that, we do have a patrol unit who are responsible for not only Moncton, but also for Riverview and Dieppe. And on average, I'm going to say this year so far, we are in the 39,000 plus calls for service for the patrol unit. So that's an increase over the past few years. Just as it relates to downtown and for homeless calls, we're on and alone, I guess it's probably higher than that if it's not carded properly, but we're in the 2,100 calls for service already for this year, for 2021. So that's a significant number. So knowing that we had that in August, we dedicated a full-time member downtown on foot patrol. And not long after, I'm going to say even 30 days afterwards, we doubled the resources to 2 full-time members on foot patrol, and included the patrol section also in marked police vehicles downtown. So we've seen some progress in some areas. I know there's lots of work to be done going forward. So we plan over the coming months to prepare for the what I guess would be the spring season once the snow melts, on more than likely doubling up the resources. There is the calls for service. Keep in mind that I have to have resources available to patrol not only the downtown, but Riverview and Dieppe. But going forward, especially once we get into April, we've targeted for us, March is the target date to be able to have enough resources for the downtown core specifically. So right now, we currently have 3 uniform resources that are assigned to our community policing unit. But we have to also manage our school talks and all the other tasks that they would have within that unit. As far as the downtown office goes, or a downtown community policing office, I know that would be probably something that would be well received downtown. The RCMP is not a fast moving machine, but I can say in this question specifically, this one, we've moved in what we would, if you compare it to RCMP speed and lightning speed. So we have received approval from the CRPA, or the Kodiak Regional Police Authority, to obtain a second location in the downtown core to address the need. We've already visited a few locations in the downtown core, and now we're just waiting for the I guess the owners of both the locations that we have identified to come back with an idea on how quickly could we have access to these buildings based on the requirements, and how much space there would be. And then once we have that, we'll know exactly how many members we can put downtown in the core. So obviously visibility is a key component for that office, and depending on the space, I'd like to see as much police officers going in and out of that location. We're also looking to include the chief's community policing, I guess not community policing officers, but the chief's team for the bylaw officers to be housed in there with us. Obviously, again, the key to this is visibility. So we're hoping that by March, the community policing office, which should be situated in the middle of downtown on Main, will be in place, and police cars in and out of there with uniform officers. We have, I guess I won't go into the other ones, I guess, until we get to the next question. So I guess that's pretty much sums it up, John. So we're looking for that office open by the end of March.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent De Silva. As I mentioned, feel free to post any question as we go in the Q&A, folks. The next action I'll direct to Chief Landry, and it's that the City of Moncton will add more bylaw enforcement officers. Chief, can you tell us how many, when, and what their role will be?
Perfect. Thanks, John. Good morning, everybody. Maybe I'll just go a little bit of back in time. Prior to April of this year, basically the city had bylaw officers Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And then in April, we hired 8 bylaw officers. We call them community officers. And the difference is a community officer is out in the streets versus the bylaw officers more in the office and investigating stuff. So we hired 8 community officers, and that was from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. So we saw that there was a need, obviously 24 hours. So in July, we rejigged their schedule, and as of July of this year, there was 24 hours a day. So still 8 officers, but they were working 24 hours a day. So there's somebody there 24 hours a day on duty. So the way it works is there's 2 officers on duty at any given time, and they do 12-hour shifts. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And at 6 p.m., another 2 officer comes in and they finish the next morning. So that started in July. In September, we added an additional bylaw officer. So in the office, we only had 2 bylaw officers. So now we have 3 bylaw officers, and they can assist also in responding to calls as needed. Recently, in December, we sent a letter to the province. The issue that we're having is that the bylaw officers or the community officers, the only authority they have is to enforce the bylaws. So they don't have any authority to enforce any laws, Canadian or provincial. And so we're requesting to the province, and there is a clause in there that allows the province to do that, is to give them some authority to designate as peace officers so that they would have the authority to enforce some of the provincial acts that we have. Again, that's a challenge with a private security. A private security has no authority under the law whatsoever. The bylaw officers have the authority to enforce bylaws, so municipal bylaws, and then we need peace officer and above to enforce provincial and etc. So the letter has been sent and we're waiting for a response. We already had meetings with the province and we're waiting for a response on what the appetite for the province to do this. Recently, also in December, we added a 9th community officer. You may have met him, Sunny Duguay. So he's there from 7 a.m. to 4:30, and does not have a vehicle. He's on foot patrol. There's a vehicle if you need it, but basically he's solely dedicated to the downtown, versus the other community officers respond to calls throughout the entire city. But Sunny is responsible Monday to Friday, 7 to 4:30, specifically for downtown. We also recently, as of last week, is asked our 2 community officers that are on duty at any given time to really focus on the downtown till midnight. They have some patrols. They need to patrol the parks in the city, and they have a list of tasks they need to do. And if it's still 1 o'clock or whatever, until they see that the downtown kind of calms down a bit, but they're responsible is really focus on downtown also. So evenings and weekends and nights. So, but again, if they have a call for service elsewhere, they might have to leave to respond to that. Also, in early December, we started, this is our customer service rep. So basically, when you call the bylaw office, in the past, before December, you would get the cell phone of the community officers. So if they are busy doing something, they may or may not answer. So now, at least Monday to Friday now, there's a customer service. The city has established a customer service so that people can answer and dispatch the community officers or the bylaw officers. And that in February, the plans are to have that 24 hours a day. So right now it's Monday to Friday. And as of February, we plan on having that as a 24 hours a day function too, so that the people on the streets don't have to answer the phone. They can, and then data collection and information and all that. So in order to not lose that information. In January, we're posting for another bylaw officer, so that would bring it to a total of 4. So not the community officer, but another bylaw, so we'll be 4 bylaw officers. So that should happen fairly soon in the new year. We've also ordered 5 vehicles, so they're they're like Ford Explorer police vehicles. They're going to be black, striped and all that. They should arrive in March. We just received a serial number, so we know they're being built. And basically, that's for visibility to deter also. So we'll have 5 of these vehicles circulating the city. Again, it's all about presence and et cetera. And then also in March is a new software that we're implementing again, so that the officers can track and then we can have data on where these individuals are moving potentially, or where our highest demand for service is. We do have it right now, but it's not as efficient as it should be. And the last thing, and I know it's coming up, but no, I'll wait for next time. So that's kind of the report for now on the bylaw side, and just I'll give another comment when the other issue comes up. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Landry. Just want to mention there was a post in the chat from Kim at the Capitol praising the work of the community officers, especially on the nights of shows at the theater. So
thank you.
The next item is Kodiak Regional RCMP will launch the Nexus Top 5 program before the end of 2021. Superintendent De Silva, if you can explain exactly what that is. And the second part of that one is to work with stakeholders to reduce the process time between arrest and sentencing.
Thank you, John. So the top 5, I guess, is a initiative that we've undertaken, working with alongside Vitality, Horizon, Social Development, the YMCA Reconnect, and the Homeless Steering Committee. Essentially, is identifying some individuals within the community that we can address immediately. I know that there is plans even within this joint action or your action plan, where there is a complex need pilot project that will get underway. This is just a intermediate, I guess, in the meantime, for actions to take place right away. So that is ongoing. There is obviously issues of consent from the individuals downtown, but it is ongoing, and we're hoping that once the complex need pilot project goes ahead, that if there's any impediments or best practices that are developed during this time, it will help to accelerate, I guess, the future project or pilot project that's coming on. I would say, though, even though there is the top 5 individuals that are mentioned here in the Nexus, we do on an ongoing basis here at the Kodiak Regional Police review calls for service, and often individuals surface as significant calls for service. And I would, this is probably an appropriate time for me to mention the community as a whole, not just the business owners, but all community participants need to call into the police whenever cases take place or incident takes place. We see a variety of emails coming in from all areas, from the city, from counselors on issues that are taking place in the downtown. And it really needs to be reported to the police, either through an emergency line, 911, if it takes place as an emergency, or if it's not an emergency, to a regular number, because we use that data. And some of the prime examples is once individuals surface as a significant call for service, and there's an opportunity either to proceed through the judicial system or other avenues with some of our community stakeholders, those are acted upon. So the community policing unit, along with our analysts, review these on a daily basis. So just to draw the attention that another item we are, like I said, I don't want to create all these lists of individuals, but we do have individuals within the city of Moncton who have outstanding warrants outside of our jurisdiction. So we are exploring right now the possibility of lawfully being able to detain and transport these individuals back to their community or home province. Some of these are significant as far as calls for service. They're probably well known within the business community who they are, except the warrants that are currently in place do not have the backing to do an arrest here in New Brunswick and transport back to, let's say, Ontario. But we're looking into to see if we can lawfully do this and effect the arrest here, transport the individuals out of the province, which essentially will solve our problem here. So those are some as far as the reviewing our internal process, John. So it's a complex matter. It's been going on. This is once an arrest takes place and an individual goes through the system here and is not detained for court. And I know that more than likely some of the business owners would like to see us arrest and detain everybody, but the reality is the system won't allow for it. There is we have to satisfy certain grounds once we arrest an individual that we can keep them in custody. And a lot of times we do forward files that we believe there should be a detention prior to go towards a bail hearing, and the individuals will go before the judge. But the reality is our Crown prosecutors have the final say, and a lot of times individuals are arrested and released quickly. So in that process, if they are released, we're trying to reduce the time between arrest, release, and appearance before court. So that is not an easy task, but internally here within Kodiak, we've already identified areas where we could reduce the time. So now we're working with our partners with the provincial crowns, federal crowns, or the judicial system to be able to put that into place. So we're hoping by March of 2022, which is coming up in the first quarter, that we can act on that and reduce at least the time between the arrest and court appearance.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. There are some great questions that are coming in on the Q&A, which I want to make sure we have time for. So we'll try to go through the rest of the actions. We may leave a couple of the more kind of minor ones off the presentation here. The next one, Superintendent, is about Kodiak providing additional resources, social workers for the mobile health crisis unit. What's the impact of that?
Thanks, John. I think the impact of that will be pretty significant. So we know that the mobile crisis unit to date, so if I just take the numbers we have for the previous month, for the month of November of 2021, we had 35 calls for service that we dealt with the mobile crisis unit. So out of those, 22 of the calls resulted in our members not having to go to the emergency room with the person who's either detained or arrested. So just to give you an idea what that looks like, normally when we bring an individual to one of the hospitals for him to see or seek help we're not doctors, obviously, so we're not able to release under the Mental Health Act. So it's an average call for those are 3 hours of 2 officers waiting at the hospital. So in this case, 22 of the 35 calls, we did not have to go to the emergency room. So the resources that we do have here are then able to continue patrolling throughout the city or cities. Out of the 35 calls, we had 2 that we did have to attend. And then the rest are a follow-up consultation with the mobile crisis unit. So we see a benefit in adding to this component because they only cover from noon to 10, from my understanding. So our goal would be to have some social worker or some type of that type of employee on one of our 4 teams. And then after that releases the members, once the call is taken care of, we don't have to spend an enormous amount of time at the emergency room, especially when we're dealing with mental health cases. So we're hoping that by April of 2022 that we're able to allocate funds towards that from our budget, and then the positions being staffed by either Horizon or Vitality.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to amalgamate the next 2 actions. Both relate to cooperation between Kodiak Regional RCMP and City Bylaw. One of the actions is to work towards stronger integration of your respective units. And tied to that is the 2 units examining ways to better enforce the updated shopping cart bylaw. And as we know, shopping carts overloaded with goods are one of the most visible signs, I guess, of homelessness in the core. Can both Superintendent De Silva and Chief Landry address that?
I'll start, and then Superintendent can add. So obviously, as previously mentioned, the potential office downtown. We're looking to collaborate there to have our officers stationed there. So it's not, it's kind of the vision that you could potentially see an RCMP and community officers walking together on the downtown area. We want to park our vehicles around in the downtown area. So want to really show a presence in the area. So I think that's one major thing. And also by having a shared office, they can communicate and understand the issues and work together and use the proper resources at the right time and right place. The shopping cart, so a few initiatives. So the last council meeting was the last reading of the updated shopping cart bylaw, and doesn't affect the downtown, but now the shopping cart bylaw is for the entire city. Before it was just for the downtown. So that it helps us do our job a little better. So that's been passed. We also recently, one of the 3 bylaw officers that we have, one of them as of this week, actually, that's his job to deal with the shopping carts. So from dealing with the businesses and helping them have a system to picking up the shopping carts and moving people along. One of the challenges that we were facing is that when you see somebody with a shopping cart, the homeless person, their first question is, okay, well, where do you want me to put my stuff? It's easy to say, I don't care, but you just can't have it here, can't have it in a shopping cart. But it's a lot easier to do our job if we have a solution or a place for them. So we've been working with Vincent Marola has been the lead on this, and working with the YMCA and Reconnect. And so we're looking at a storage facility at the YMCA. It looks like right now, like a sea container that would be kind of security. There'd be somebody there monitoring, so not 24 hours. It'd only be certain hours, and it's not a free for all. We would have to unlock it for that person, and they can go access. But they would have their own individual bins or area that would be locked. So at least it gives them an area to put their stuff. So once that, and that looks like it should be done late this year, early next year. So if that goes ahead as planned and things are looking good, then at least for my bylaw officers, community officers, they can tell the individual, here's a spot, put your stuff there, but that's it. The rest of the stuff you need to get rid of, and then it's a lot easier for us to grab that shopping cart from that person. And we need to work at the source, so we need to make sure that the people that the store owners that have shopping carts, that they prevent the shopping carts from leaving the site in the first place. And one system is really interesting, is that it's like a kind of a dog fence, an invisible fence. You put some beacons in the corner of your parking lot, and there's a lock on the wheel. And as soon as the shopping cart leaves that parking lot, it freezes the wheel, it locks the wheel, and then brings it that it's really hard to operate. So we already have a few businesses in the city that has that, and it's been proven to be fairly effective. So there is solutions on that. We are working on it. So now we have all the tools needed to do quite a big effect on that. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't want to cut off debate, but I really want to get to some of these questions. So then the last sort of action that maybe I'll ask Superintendent De Silva to address is adding your voice to the task force to advocate for a mental health court. What are the benefits of a mental health court versus the usual judicial process?
Hey, John, I guess if we make reference to the guiding principles behind the document, I don't think we mentioned those early on in the presentation. So, I just, before we jump into the mental health court, the safe storage in that of items that we've seen in other jurisdictions outside of this province, where the police took a heavier hand approach. I don't think we want to see that here in Moncton, where we take an approach where we end up in the Globe and Mail the next morning. It's crucial, I guess, for the individuals that are downtown to have a place to store their goods. And then once we do have that, then it'd be easier for both us and the chief to act towards the shopping carts downtown. As far as the mental health court, I guess it's, we've seen benefits in other jurisdictions in other provinces where when you have dedicated individuals in the judicial system that work towards again, it falls right within the guiding principles of what we're trying to do here, is have experts who know where the services are and what the individuals would need. So in that case here, we have already started to advocate that within our own area of responsibility here in Kodiak, but I've raised it also at the provincial level with our criminal operations officer at headquarters in Fredericton to address it with the chief prosecutor. So there are significant steps to push towards that. Obviously, some of the components that we don't necessarily have control over, which is the courts, but I think collectively between all of us, if we're successful in having that type of a court here in Moncton, will go a long way towards addressing some of the needs the individuals have. And we've seen recently, John, in the Times and Transcript or any other paper, we have individuals who have gone before the regular courts, and obviously there was a need for a psychiatric evaluation. And then you can see subsequent charges. But I think as far as dealing with individuals downtown, it'll be much faster for us to go through this process. And once it's established with the Crowns, I think that there's a potential that we can keep people longer and not just release them if we can highlight the fact that there could be mental health issues. So we'll continue to advocate that both at the local level and the provincial level.
Okay, thank you. A couple of other actions which we'll just mention before we dive into the questions. Kodiak is going to place all specialized units connected with homelessness under a dedicated inspector. And I guess Superintendent De Silva, that's to provide better coordination of everything Kodiak's doing in that respect.
Yes, John, exactly. So if you look at that, we're probably going to hit 40,000 calls for service. So it's key for us to have all of that, especially when we're dealing with specific issues, that it doesn't end up in 4 different offices. That there's coordination even within our own office. So we've seen a lot of benefit already in us aligning ourselves. So that's just one other step within this building here that we can address the concerns downtown.
Okay. And the last one is the task force and the Greater Moncton Homelessness Steering Committee will call on Corrections Canada to develop a residential release plan to ensure that offenders, if they're released into Moncton, there's some sort of rehab or support services so that they're just not released onto the street and add to the situation here. I want to turn to the questions because there, as I said, there are some really good ones. First off, the first question, Steve Vassar, I will get to you eventually. I know you've asked to speak, so I'm going to jump to the second question from Gerald at the Crown. And I've heard this from a lot of hotel operators in particular, the number of auto breaks and enters downtown in hotel parking lots and business parking lots really seems to be rampant. What is being done or can be done to head that off, Superintendent?
It's a large concern for us, John, especially thefts from vehicles. And I know that on a lot of occasions, not every one of them, it is a crime of opportunity where vehicles, we've seen it several times this year already, where 10 to 15 vehicles on one street are broken into or in a certain location downtown. We have worked with communications both within the RCMP and the City of Moncton, and we're hoping to have a communication strategy. It's key that we do not leave items in our vehicles, that the vehicles are locked, and we see it over and over again that the vehicles are not locked or items of value are left in vehicles. So I think that would be one component. Obviously, the presence downtown is key, but we've seen theft from vehicles not only in the downtown area, all over. And I'm going to say that over and over again, I've said it at every council meeting, these need to be reported. A lot of times, the items taken from vehicles are small and are not reported to the RCMP. And we do utilize criminal analysts here within our office on an ongoing basis, and they know where the trends are if they're reported. So it's key that, like I've said it already once today, and I hope I can say it a third time before we're done, that if there's items that take place or issues downtown with homeless or other issues for thefts, it has to be reported to the police.
Okay. We've talked a lot about downtown, and it seems like maybe by default we talk about Main Street, but there's a question here about possible location for bylaw officers and or RCMP on St. George. And we know St. George Street corridor has certainly seen its share of issues. Superintendent and Chief Landry, would you like to address that?
Just one comment. I mean, for us, we're not actively looking for a space on St. George. Having said that, our community officers, the downtown includes St. George. So that's part of their patrol. So they're definitely in the area for sure.
And John, I guess for us with the RCMP, obviously we've spoken about an office downtown that there's already 2 locations, but it would be, I guess, the same as what the chief just mentioned. The downtown for us does not just include the Main Street, but it includes the greater downtown area. We are divided into zones throughout the tri-community. So the downtown itself, and I mentioned it earlier, there is a larger amount of calls for service. So it's easy for us to justify, and we'll work towards increasing the complement downtown, but it will include St. George for patrols.
A question just came in related to this, so I'll jump to that. What about Albert Street? we know that, the shelter there is a kind of a hub for some activity. And if you talk to the owner of the Chris Rock or area businesses, they've certainly seen it all. What can be done in that area to reduce criminal activity?
Thanks, John. So, it is an area of concern. Our foot patrol does go down there on a daily basis to that area, and so do the marked vehicles on the that are assigned for downtown patrol. So, we have large concentrations of individuals, and I was to mention this earlier, but there is I guess when you look at downtown, and if you take individuals who say, I don't want to walk downtown because there is a fear or perception that every one of the individuals downtown are criminals, but we have to remember that not everybody who is homeless is also a criminal, right? Some of the individuals are downtown or happen to be in the area for other reasons. There is some of the individuals downtown who are committing criminal offenses, but not all of them. But the perception today is that if you see an individual downtown, that the individual is committing criminal offenses. It is not supported by the stats that we have. We know there is a percentage of individuals who are committing criminal offenses. That said, the concentration or the larger amount, and I see it in your document, we're looking at shelters, and that it is a large amount of individuals in one location, which could be problematic. So in this case here, we do patrol as often as we can, but we can't be there on an ongoing basis. And I know from my understanding is that the shelter does have security on site, but we are working closely with them, and I think with all the other agencies to try to address some of these concerns, but there's work to be done in that area.
There are at least 3 questions here in the Q&A related to the difference between when do I call RCMP versus when do I contact community safety officers? Where's the dividing line? And who do I call? So perhaps both of you can address that.
Yeah, John, I'll start that one. And I'm not sure if something we could post on the website or whatever, but we do have a one pager that does exactly that, differentiates between the two. But in a nutshell, if it's a crime, then it's an RCMP thing. And if it's a bylaw infraction, is it obviously a bylaw. Now, if you call one or the other, they'll tell you that this is not the right agency, and then they can refer. Homeless is one of those things that's hard because if there's a homeless camping out or something like that, you can call the bylaw officers and we're going to intervene. And again, keeping in mind that bylaw officers have no authority to physically move somebody. They can ask them to move, but if they don't move, they can call the RCMP. Now, if the homeless is committing a crime, using drugs or doing damage, then that's an RCMP thing. So it's hard to put homeless in one bottle. It's what activity are they doing? If they're sleeping or hanging out or whatever, then our bylaw officers can certainly respond and assist to that. Legally, if it's a private property, it's RCMP. If it's a public property, it's the bylaws. But having said that, we do respond to private properties to assist and see, because again, our bylaw officers, their priority is the homeless, and then on the RCMP, it is their priority, but they might have bigger or higher priority stuff. So we'd rather have a bylaw officer respond to it, start the process of moving somebody, and call the RCMP when they might have less priority calls. But so that's kind of nutshell. But there is a nice document. I'm not sure how we do that, John, if I send it to you and the DMCI, and then you circulate it to your membership, that explains well with all the phone numbers and emails and all that stuff.
I think one of the key questions is examples of what constitutes a call to community safety. Is it aggressive panhandling? Is it vagrancy? Is it, what types of things?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for sure, and I'm going to answer, the political correct answer is that any infraction of the bylaw. But obviously, for examples, panhandling is so we got to be careful. In the downtown per se, it's not allowed panhandling, but we got to be careful because the Supreme Court of Canada did rule that panhandling itself is not necessarily against the law, but bugging people or aggressively going after people or asking. So it's just, there's a fine line for that. But yes, panhandling would be a bylaw thing. People, again, sleeping on a public street or sleeping or setting up a tent in a park, because our parks don't allow for people to stay overnight. If they leave a huge mess or whatever, we can definitely act on that. So it's all those, there's the noise bylaw if they're making noise, for example. So panhandling, noise, shopping cart is definitely a bylaw issue. So those are the examples that you can call. And if you folks, I can give the phone number and the email. So this is the same number 24 hours a day. We just call forward to the appropriate dispatch for bylaw only. So 389-5928 is the phone number 24 hours a day. And the email is info.enforcement@moncton.ca. On that one only gets checked during Monday to Friday. So if you have something that can't wait, then you can call the bylaw department 24/7.
Okay. I don't know, Superintendent De Silva, if you wanted to chime in, or we can move on.
Yeah, just for a couple of seconds there, John. So we can post Conrad's document on the CRPA website. Online reporting for police is coming. So we know that in January or so, we're hoping in January that the online reporting comes in. So it's simply log in, report whatever it is you want to report, and there will be officers who will triage that and deal with it accordingly. So like I say, it's important for stuff to be reported either through Conrad or myself, through one of our offices. But you know, CRPA is probably a good place, obviously, to log some of these documents.
So just to follow up, Anne just posted as well, both DMCI and the Chamber will circulate that document that Conrad mentioned to everybody who we issued the invitation to today, I guess, Anne. Make sure you have it. There's a question here that I've heard before today, which I think is a really good one. Can you help explain the requirement to give 24 hours notice to someone camping out in a public park with excessive garbage, tents, etc.? I have a recent example that it took 32 hours for a call to be addressed. This was within 30 feet from a hotel guest room next door in the park.
Yeah, so John, thanks for the question. That's something that we're trying to find out where that's coming from. Depending on the situation, but if there's someone, for example, that's not in a public place, that's way out in the woods, then we courtesy is a 24-hour notice. If we want to press charges, for example, then what the courts are saying is that we should give them enough notice and a few notice. So 3 notices is what we decided. But if it's just to move the person along, we can move them right away. That's not, there's nothing in our bylaw that requires a 24 hours. So I've heard that too, and we're trying to communicate that to our officers, that there's no requirement for 20, and I will, after this meeting, we'll remind them again that if there's nothing wrong, the only challenge in that the 24 hours might help is that we do have a contract with a cleaning company that comes and cleans up. So sometimes what happens if we move them right away, then they're going to come back within an hour or so. But if we move them, so the cleaning company normally is twice a week, so not necessarily the same days, but so if we move them, let's say the cleaning company comes on Tuesday, and on Monday we get a call, we give them 24 hours notice, because if we go on Tuesday, then we move them and clean their stuff, and that's going to reduce the chance of them coming there again. I'm not saying they won't, but if their stuff is still there when we move them, it's pretty guaranteed that they're going to come back within an hour or so. But the actual 24-hour, there's no requirement on our end, unless there's a charge or something like that. There's no requirement on our end to give 24 hours. So I will try to remind our staff to kind of abolish that or stop using that as, I don't want to say an excuse, but as an answer.
Okay. So there's a question here. It says, understanding there are short and long-term solutions that are needed. What is the short-term approach to dealing with the concentration of substance abuse and vandalism complaints around the Ensemble location on Weldon Street, where paraphernalia is distributed 24/7, which attracts a higher number of users who look to satisfy their addiction immediately on adjacent properties, jeopardizing the safety of residents and employees of local businesses when they might be confronted by individuals once under the influence. Should there be a requirement for Ensemble to ensure they're not facilitating or adding to problems for neighbors?
John, this might be I'm not sure if Vincent can add some insight on there.
Yeah, certainly. So definitely, I know Ensemble does have a very large bin for folks to be able to drop off used needles there. We have been set up throughout the city and throughout many of our parks. Whether or not Ensemble is or another nonprofit is going to be handing out these safe, clean materials for folks to use, these folks are still going to use. And the problem is that they're going to use unsafely. They're going to reuse needles and share needles. This is going to have a compounding effect when we talk about IV viruses, endocarditis. These are very expensive things to treat in our system. So really, the whole purpose around Ensemble is to have a harm reduction approach, and that is what they're doing. We do, our bylaw officers are prepared to be able to pick up needles that they do find. And we do have a wonderful, it's not even a nonprofit, it's just a group of volunteers in our community, needle awareness, who will pick up needles if they are reported. So we have a process by which to be able to deal with it. If we were to completely do away with Ensemble and the service that they provide, it would have compounding financial and human toll issues that would happen to our community.
Thanks, Vincent, for that. Couple other questions here, and then we'll open the mics. One is regarding, I think, Conrad, you mentioned the cleaning company that's used sometimes to clean up sites. Is that available to property owners? This individual says we share a parking lot with 75 Albert and would like to use them if possible.
Yeah, I mean the city has a contract with them, but it's Ailes Landscaping that we use, that we have a contract. So by all means, they're set up for this, and if someone would like to contact them, I don't have their number right offhand, but if they want to contact them so there's a price for that. Obviously, they charge. It's not on a nonprofit, but yeah, if they want to contact them, absolutely no issues there.
Okay, just a couple of more, and then we'll go to some open mic here. One is a question that asks, for those on the streets who don't overnight in any of the shelters, are there either community or RCMP officers suggesting this option to them, and what reaction do you get? I mean, I've heard a few comments about some don't want to avail themselves of that option. Maybe that's also a Vincent question.
Sure, yeah. It's no wonder that shelters are often throughout our country understaffed, under-resourced. And when we have that, there are a variety of safety issues that can come up in shelters. I'm not singling any of ours out because this is a widespread issue across the country. Shelters are often very dangerous places for people because the staff that they have there, and also the organized crime element who preys upon those people by going there as well. It's too much for the shelters to handle with the resources that they have. So yes, recommendations that are certainly put forward, I know, by RCMP and bylaw. But I will tell folks right now, even with Nazareth's capacity of 100 and with Harvest House's capacity of 44, and I forget the total number at Crossroads, it's in the 30s. Right now, our shelters are at capacity. And we know there are people still left on the streets. So there is conversations, some counselors had mentioned about potentially looking at doing it out of cold. We have done this in the past. The issue being here is we need somebody to be able to staff it and manage it. And we are looking at that. Additionally, the province has committed to providing both Harvest House and Nazareth with additional resources to be able to do an increased capacity. That's going to need to be sort of coordinated with both fire protection, social development, and the shelters. But we're hoping that does come in line sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Vincent. I should probably point out that the task force had a meeting on Monday with 5 area government MLAs, and we pressed them on several of the actions that are in this report. So hopefully we'll start to make some headway there. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want for people who want to say something sort of live to have that opportunity. And I know Steve Vassar, you had raised your hand early. So Xavier, I don't know if you can unmute Steve Vassar from the list so he can make a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Steve, we can.
I'd like to thank all of you. I had no idea how much work you've been putting into it. And from our point of view, often we see it as just a subjective, right? From business, from our point of it, suffering, all of the things that we go through, which the petition brought out, I gave to Ann. But I would like to thank all of you for the great efforts you've made. And what we're doing now is obviously trying to work together, retailers and all of you, police and all of you involved, to try and make this situation one that manages to work itself out in the end. I have many homeless people that are good people. I'm not against homeless. Trust me, I would like to see the rich help them. We won't go into that. That's a political science issue. But outside of that, what needs to be done, it requires money. It requires extra spaces for them. It requires someone that has the capacity to either contribute to help the community, and I will say the name Irving's, I'm trying not to swear here, but anyone that should be able to help the province as well, to help accommodate these people. Many of them, it's not by choice. I understand that. Poverty is incredible. It's right across the country, as all of you have alluded to, and it's a serious problem. What we need to do, I think, is just look after our own. I suggested this. I'd like to hear your comments on it, either written or otherwise, as to bringing other people in from other cities when our own are going to be all that we can handle, both financially, municipally, and every other aspect of it. And I've listened to the coordination of all of the RCMP, trying to get these things and these mandates put into place. And I know bureaucracy takes a while, and sometimes we want things faster. I understand from listening to all of you today that it does take a bit of time. So we have to be patient as merchants as well. I listened to the commentaries on 120 that signed a petition I went by, and you addressed them all. It was the violence, it's the breaking enters, it's the constant barrage of the public perception, which has cost us in business a lot of money. We know that. I've had at least 100 customers come into my store and say, we will not shop in Main Street again because we are afraid to come down here. So that perception has to change. It has to change for both the businesses at hand and for the overall community. So anything you can do, with all the implementations I've been listening to and appreciate what you're trying to do, and I know it's going to take a little bit of time, we have to have that brought back to Main Street because we have been injured, trust me. I'm 34 years at retail. I've heard it all, seen it all. I've heard rhetoric, non-rhetoric. I've heard the good solutions and bad solutions that were never acted upon. And when I speak, I'm speaking on behalf of merchants, not just me, Steve Vassar. I'm speaking on behalf of all the people that were in this together to try and make a living. That's our livelihood. So yes, we have a huge problem, but I think if we all work together in this, I'm sure we can solve it. And I like what Constable De Silva said. I like what Mr. Landry said. And I like what you've addressed as well. And she's always in the back with a catcher's glove. She gets everything I throw at her, and she manages to respond accordingly in a very, very diplomatic way. And same with you, Mr. Fulham. I thank you for your commentaries. And Mr. Marola, who I've met before. So that being said, I'm not going to hold up too much more time. I hope that we can do this progressively and keep me informed and the merchants informed as to what actions, besides what you've stated today, or any changes that you may make, to let us know where we stand and what we can do to contribute as well. I give to the homeless. I have subs or different stuff. I understand what's going on. Trust me. I have a master's degree. I have political science background, and I have over 39 years of progressive research in many fields. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. Trust me. If anyone does, I do. So that being said, keep up the good work. And if there's anything you can answer to me, please blat me away.
Thanks very much, Steve, for those comments. We know you're certainly on the front line in the middle of Main Street these days. I'd like to point out, Mayor Arnold posted in the chat that the full document with all the actions, the 5 guiding principles, which I forgot to mention off the top, is on both the DMCI and the Chamber's website. So you can go there to download it or to view it. We're going to follow up with the one pager that Conrad mentioned. And unless anybody else would like to have a public comment, I'm going to close things off by turning it over to Anne Poirier-Basque of DMCI for some closing words. Anne? Oh, you're on mute, Anne. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, John. I really want to thank our presenters today, Denis Foulem of Du Parc, John, yourself, Superintendent Ron De Silva, Conrad Landry, and Vincent Marola from the city. And thank you all for taking the time to be here today. Merci de votre temps. Merci d'avoir participé à notre rencontre aujourd'hui. We hope that this has provided you with a good update on the action items from the task force report. And as you can see, a lot of work has been put towards downtown security in a very short period. We're all committed to a safe and vibrant downtown, and we all are supporting efforts to improve the safety of our downtown. We need you all as business owners as well to keep informing us on any issues that you are facing. And also, as already pointed out, there's going to be 3 very important documents on our website. I don't know if you can see this. It's who do I call? Who do I contact? We have hard copies of this. If you would like to have them, let me know. Also, the City of Moncton safety responsibilities. This will be on our website, and also the report itself. So we want to see immediate actions on these issues and keep you informed. Alors, nous avons pris note de vos questions. J'espère que tous ont été répondus. Sinon, on notera de vous envoyer des réponses par courriel. We wish you all the best for the holiday season and a safe new year ahead. Joyeuses fêtes à vous tous.
Thanks, everybody. We will get back to you early next year with our next update. That was a question that was posted in the chat. Thanks for attending.
All right.
Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.